Good evening, honorable members. Good evening, honorable members. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all members of the committee, the executive of parliament in absentia as they are on the way to the meeting, support staff and everyone present here. Our agenda for today is straightforward, focusing on the in-year monitoring exercise of parliament performance, covering Q1 to Q3 of the 2024-2025 financial year. Honourable members, as we are aware, this committee was established in accordance with Section 4.1 of the Financial Management of Parliament Act Number 10 of 2009. One of its key responsibilities is to maintain oversight of the financial management of Parliament. Honourable members, before proceeding, I will read out the agenda for this meeting. I will also check with the committee secretary for any apologies received. Following that, I will request the adoption of the agenda before we formally commence the meeting. Additionally, I would like to confirm that all necessary documents were sent to members in a timely manner to facilitate their preparation. Honourable members, I know it is late in the day, but let us do our best to ensure that this engagement is productive and successful. By so saying, honourable members, I will go to item 2, which is the apologies, and also greetings to my co-chair, Honourable Kanyan. Can we, Cindy, deal with the apologies, please?
Good evening, members and guests. We have received 3 apologies from Mr. Badenhorst, who is an oversight, and Mr. Wessels, who is a new member in the NA. And the speaker has also submitted an apology. She is unwell and unable to attend.
Thanks, Cindy. Can we check the adoption of the agenda, members? TG?
Chair, the Secretary of Parliament is not supposed to be in the meeting. We only spoke about the speaker.
She's coming.
Is it he?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
Kalibi.
Thank you very much. I just want to get a clarity before we adopt the agenda. Because here on the agenda, it says Parliament performance between 1st April 2024 and 31st December 2024. So is the Speaker of National Assembly. If she is not well, what will happen to that item?
I think we have sent her apology, and we have the chairperson of the NCOP, who's also the executive authority. I don't think it's going to be a problem, because even last time the speaker was alone, and he was able to share all the information with us. So I don't think this will be a problem, Honourable Khalib. So can we check the adoption of the agenda, please? Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honourable Co-Chairperson. I move for the adoption of the agenda. Thanks.
Thank you, Honourable Khadebe.
Honourable Chairperson, I second the adoption of the agenda.
Thanks very much. Welcome, STP and Chairperson of NCOP, Mayor Tsipan. Can we, and also welcome the Secretary to NCOP. Can we now give you the opportunity to present STP? Or we start with the, yes, can we give the chairperson?
No, thank you very much, co-chairpersons of the session. Good evening to your good self, as well as the members of the Joint Standing Committee on Finance. Indeed, we are here having appreciated the apology of the Speaker as executive authorities in Parliament for the 7th Parliament to present the first, the second and the third quarterly report, as well as the annual plan for the year 2024-2025. And maybe Honorable Kalipa was correct, maybe to ask the questions of our whereabouts. This is the legacy report that we are presenting before yourself, which we have inherited. And we must indicate that as the new EAs in the institution, we have been taken through what is before the committee to be presented. Ideally, if everything was equal, being normal, obviously having been affected as well by the transition, probably it would have been ideal to start with the APP plan that was before Parliament, which was actually adopted by Parliament, and subsequent to that, we give account in line with the priorities and plans that we shall have set ourselves. But we understand the situation in which we find ourselves, and we respected and yielded to the call that has been made by the Portfolio Committee for us to come and give account of the work that has been done. Now, without any further ado, Honorable Co-Chairpersons, allow me to hand over to the Secretary to Parliament to give a detailed presentation on the 3 quarters as well as the APP. Obviously, the first and the second quarter has already been overtaken as well by events, of which we are now at the tail end of the 3rd quarter. But be that as it may, we are ready to present 3 quarters as directed by the committee. Thank you very much. Over to you, STP.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good evening to both co-chairperson and honorable members of the Joint Standing Committee on Financial Management of Parliament. Our sincere apology of walking whilst you are already seated. We had a time communication of 19:30 and we were in another session, so it is of no disrespect to come whilst the committee is already in sitting. And thank you very much. Indeed, what the chairperson is outlining is correct. Under normal circumstances, will be at quarter 3 presentation, having presented quarter 1, quarter 2 as the administration of Parliament, and also building on what an APP would have outlined what our priorities are. But the transition has made it difficult in many ways, awaiting for the committee to be established later last year. So in this context, Chairperson, this is a report of the cycle of the last leg of the 6th administration in terms of our implementation of the strategic plan. So quarter 3, as you see it, is a cumulative statement of quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3, as we will share with the committee. And it is outlined in terms of the priorities that have been set. I don't know who's controlling the, yes. So in terms of the table of contents, the program performance, and we will cover overall performance of Parliament, and then also cover the 2 programs under which the key outline of activities falls under. Program 1 being administration, and program 2 being legislation and oversight. And I would ask the acting CFO to cover the financial report and the human capital report component and the governance report. So that's basically the key outline of our report in this area. Essentially, the purpose of the quarterly report is to respond to the provisions of Section 52 and 54 of the Financial Management of Parliament that says that within 30 days of each quarter, we must submit that report to the Executive Authority, and then thereafter it gets presented to the Joint Standing Committee and subsequent further presentation. So out of the year that we are reporting against, honorable members, we have 10 indicators that were outlined, and we are reporting against the assessment of those 10 indicators. Under Program 1, we had 4 targets. Under Program 2, we had 6 targets. And in aggregate summary outcome of the performance of the quarter, as at December 2024, we were sitting at 70% attainment of those targets as at December, which is the end of the quarter. And it responds to those components where 3 of the targets were still lagging. And if we were to split it into program performance under Program 1, it had 4 targets that we were measuring as deliverables in terms of output. The first one being parliamentary buildings, restoration of parliament, which we have not done very well in terms of the targets. And we'll explain later on what led to non-attainment of that target. The second one is a target on realigned organizational culture, meaning the administrative strengthening of the reviews we are doing to support the improvement in the work of the administration. The third one being improved digital tools and information and member satisfaction level report. So overall, under Program 1, we measured that we have achieved 75% of our commitments as at that quarter. And under those 4 areas we have covered, this is the detail of the first output, which is the restoration of parliament. In this area, we have not done very well, in the sense that some of the areas that would have resulted in us being at the ultimate building phase of parliament, we have not yet been able to achieve that. And that detail of the report would be also covered fully when we present to the committee the full scope of the restoration project of Parliament, which is scheduled for the 28th of March. And some of the areas that constituted challenges and where we are exactly on the rebuilding. But should members require further clarification, we are ready to provide clarification during question time on where we are exactly on that. On the org review, the work has been continuing fairly well in terms of the culture change in the institution, the key commitments we have made. The redesign of the organizational structures of Parliament is progressing, and around the operating model and structures that we are reviewing, that progress is continuing as per commitments. On the big data analytics modeling, it has got different delivery timelines and different delivery outputs, but it is a full project where we are developing a data rich model for the organization to be able to say, for oversight, how do we invest on data as an organization to be able to devolve, to deploy in terms of our work, to process, utilize information for decision making. And in this quarter, we needed to clarify data ownership, the arrangements around establishment of processes, and also do the skills analysis in the organization and ICT infrastructure in terms of, so as per that target, that has been achieved. Around member satisfaction, around looking at the work we are doing, look at what priority it is for members, how do we improve effectiveness of proceedings of Parliament, And for this quarter specifically, we're focusing on the development and design of the surveys for the members. On the restoration project, honorable members, these are the areas that were outputs around where we are saying we could not meet the milestones, where at the time of the end of the year, it requires us to be at 100% in terms of the restoration plan. And some of the reasons that make us to break down the not met target is that we're at 70% restoration plan per milestone. Completion of the National Assembly design documentation was achieved. And the old assembly in particular is the one where there is delay in the sense that we're at the design stage, and that process is entirely executed through the implementation agent. And as at the time of December, it could not be completed as a task in terms of documentation to go out on tender. And as we speak now, they have gone out for the process of calling for proposals from contractors to build the old assembly. The one that has been completed is the new assembly, meaning completion of the appointment of a contractor to be starting the project. The old assembly, they were meant to start together in terms of completion, but it will now be completed according to the implementing agent by end of April, so that by May, a contractor is in place. Hence, we are reporting not attained as at December. On the area of organizational culture, in terms of the target that we sampled, these are deliverables that we outlined to be at 75% at the December. Those have been achieved in terms of the elementary components of driving that project. On the digital tools for information, we targeted to achieve 75% as at December. That target was met as at end of December. That talks to us developing a data maturity involvement plan that looked at those 5 components: prioritization model, data ownership, standard data, big data skills assessment, and ICT infrastructure gap assessment of Parliament. Those ones were achieved at the time. On the member satisfaction survey, again, is to achieve 80% satisfaction level by members on such support areas on ICT in terms of their needs and so on. Here, we targeted to complete the satisfaction survey. That survey was completed as at the end of December in terms of the development. It will now be deployed in this quarter, ending by end of March. So that by the time we finish an annual report, there would be an outcome from members in terms of that. That was program 1 with all its 5 components. Under program 2, legislation and oversight, which is the core business of Parliament. In this area of work, we looked at 3 areas: the implementation of the reports on the outcome of the State Capture Commission report. The progress report on the details of that work was done by committees in implementing recommendations, and to ensure that there is accountability on those areas. So for this quarter in particular, the development of the legacy report detailing progress made was done. The oversight priority plan around providing a strategic framework aimed at enhancing coordinated oversight was a focus area. And the area on the committee planning framework was also looked at in terms of piloting the framework for approval of committees. And also the other area that we needed to develop was a country outcome indicator dashboard. And on that quarter specifically to look at finalization of key indicators for the dashboard, we were focusing on the indicators of poverty and inequality. The pilot implementation of the impact assessment framework also to conduct pre and post legislation development by Parliament. We were required to develop a framework around this area so that it could be able to assist Parliament to evaluate viability of legislation, and also when legislation has been done, what is the impact on citizens. So this quarter we focused on selecting 4 bills in terms of piloting the work. The online petition monitoring tracking system, again, its objective is aimed at public participation, and the focus for the quarter was the frontline and development of the interface, more the technical work to say what will be the online system cover. So for the quarter, we're to focus on petitions interface integration and existing website, plus the workflow design and testing of the system and its functionality. That was the focus of this quarter. And all these initiatives are aimed at contributing to Parliament's constitutional mandate of promoting accountability. So in that quarter overall, honorable members, we achieved 7% on those areas. The area that we could not achieve as per that quarter is the oversight priority plan, as well as the impact assessment framework. Around each of those areas, this is the detail of the status where we have met on the recommendations in terms of producing a legacy report that was completed. On the assessment report around oversight plan, we indicated that the target was not met as at the quarter because the pilot was not yet conducted at that time. And some of the areas that led to us not to achieve the anticipated establishment of committees and the appointment of chairpersons around piloting that oversight impacted negatively. And you also have the reality of committees that in that quarter, the programs were quite congested for committees, so we could not have committees to be able to prioritize that, especially in the areas we chose, which was the budget review and recommendations report, and the medium-term budget policy statement, and the adjustment budget. On the assessment report for committee framework, that target was met, and we were able to get approval to pilot it in terms of the committees as listed: the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Portfolio Committee on Communication and Technologies, and the Select Committee on Social Services and Select Committee. So those were the recommended ones to pilot the revised committee framework, and that target was met. On functional country outcome indicator, it's meant to help us to track the National Development Plan priorities. What are the indicators for it? To be able to produce a country outcome dashboard that will report on the selected NDP criteria. So the two targets I've mentioned, honorable members, poverty tracking, as well as inequality, those two were completed from a dashboard development. On the evaluation report on piloted impact assessment, the 4 selected bills that we mentioned, again, the target could not be met on those 4, owing to a number of consultation areas that took place around a number of role players, what amendments must be incorporated in the framework, and making those refinements resulted in us not actually implementing into those 4 bills. And under that quarter, in terms of finalizing the assessment and the later appointment of chairpersons of committees and the issue I've raised around the congested programs to be able to allow us to focus on those 4 bills. It is certainly an area that we are implementing in this quarter, and we hope that as we start the new year, those areas would be further implemented. On the last one, under Program 2, online petitions monitoring framework, we met the target. We committed at the time to make sure that we have developed 75% of the monitoring system as per the milestones I've outlined. That target was met. So when we track, honorable members, performance for quarter 1 up to quarter 3, those are the areas that reflected progress in terms of the target being met and the targets that are still being pursued with a likelihood of being achieved as at end of March, bar anything else. The restoration of the building of Parliament is one area that on the actual achievement of the milestone for the old assembly is likely to remain not achieved as at end of March, because it will require the appointment of contractors at the time in terms of the attainment of that part. However, the new assembly work is starting, and that milestone has been achieved. What we can assure honourable members is that the reconciliation of the rebuilding of Parliament is such that both contractors, when they start, whilst the first one is starting now and the other one is envisaged to start in May, their completion is reconciled. So in other words, as at September 2026, they must finish rebuilding Parliament, both of them. On the summary of the work for both houses, we are also reporting on some of the accountabilities in terms of processing oral questions and written questions in both houses. And this is an outline that we are tracking quarter to quarter in terms of comparison between the National Assembly and the NCOP. And we are noticing that at a comparison, there has been an increase in the National Assembly in terms of oral questions between quarter 1 and quarter 2, between 118 and 341, yet there was a decline in the response rate. In that previous quarter, it was 91%, it's now 86%, a slight decline. In the NCOP, it has maintained 100% record in terms of oral questions, and there was also an increase from 48 to 108 questions in quarter 3. For written reply questions, NA, it processed 1,059 in quarter 2 and 1,193 in quarter 3. And the response rate improved from 33 significantly to 81% on the written reply questions, meaning some of the adjustments that both houses are implementing on measures to ministers to respond is beginning to bear positive results around those areas. If it can move from 33% response rate to 82% positively, it's a significant improvement on a quarter-to-quarter comparison. The NCOP also handled 330 written questions in quarter 2 and 322 in quarter 3, and the response rate was also rising from 57.2 to 96.2. On the summary of the work done, I've spoken to Honorable Mkalepi before this to choose her picture, and she agreed on that. So this is a report on some of our work in the various committees in terms of processing the quarterly reports on the budgets, and we are tracking the last 3 quarters that we are reporting, and we can see the activities, the intensity of virtual and physical meeting rising to 165, and also the areas where, in line with the medium-term budget policy statements, the votes on APPs and PRRs was quite high in the October month. On the summary of the work of Parliament committees, again, the NCOP committees, this is some of the work they've done around areas of cocktail monitoring interventions in terms of Section 139 committees, various select committees on public infrastructure, security and justice, and the select committees visiting Free State and other areas around land claims. A lot of activity taking place there. Similar to NA committee highlights, they performed ESCOM oversight in terms of appropriations and investigating projects, Gauteng Department of Health in terms of medical legal claims, as well as additional oversight visits that were undertaken by Public Works Infrastructure, Labour Service Delivery Offices visits in Pretoria, the Basic Education School Readiness in Northern Cape and Western Cape, in Northwest focusing on health, as well as KwaZulu-Natal focusing on human settlements, in particular the issues of disaster recovery. On some of the statutory appointments done during that quarter, there were no statutory appointments made, but there were 30 vacancies and 12 upcoming vacancies for the next quarter, which we will be reporting at that time. On the committee processes, the Portfolio Committee on Justice did interviews for 2 statutory appointments. They are awaiting vetting, which could have happened or not as per this quarter, but we will report at that time. That relates to South Africa Human Rights Commission, as well as the Deputy Public Protector. The Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, also conducting for members of the public to apply in terms of nomination of candidates to serve in the board of the National Youth Development Agency, which the NA is considering today. Reports on statutory bodies, the Portfolio Committee on Communication and Digital Technologies, as well as the issue around remuneration for ICASA members, approval of the notices, plus sports and ultra committees. These were all processed by Parliament in the quarter under report, under review. Under the lawmaking, under the NA, it was also the focus of the House, where it processed about 9 bills as an assembly, and the NCOP under that quarter, it processed and passed about 10 bills, and in those 10 bills, 6 were for financial management, the so-called Section 77 bills, as well as Section 76 bills, plus Section 75 bills focusing on general matters. So that was the output of lawmaking in the organization around those areas. Under public participation, focusing on public engagement, public hearings, the inputs received, the petitions finalized, the media outreach. There were workshops done on the marriage bill and tobacco bills, where about almost 8,000 people were participating. Also civil society dialogues that were held with participation of 163 participants around shaping the parliament we want. And you also have a focus on community workers in terms of those areas. Under public hearings, during lawmaking, there were 22 public hearings on those bills I've reported earlier on, as well as focus areas in Gauteng and KZN. Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation focused on water challenges in Gauteng, in Germiston in particular, but also the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Disabilities also focus on issue of provision of free sanitary pads as it was requested by a member of the public. The standing select committee rather on land reform agriculture focused on the Hutsong petition. And out of the media outrage in terms of radio campaigns on these are the targets that have been achieved in terms of coverage of communities to invite their interest to participate on these matters. At an international level, in terms of the work of Parliament, these are some of the engagements Parliament has held over the period of that quarter, participating in the 67th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference in Sydney, a delegation led by the chairperson. And we also have 53 Commonwealth Parliamentary Association engagements in Africa region held in Tanzania, in Arusha, and also G20 parliamentary speakers that was held. Under regional contributions, our participation as Parliament in terms of the election observer missions in Botswana and Namibia, as well as attending the SADC Parliamentary Plenary Assembly that took place in Zambia at the end of December. The bilateral relations hosted, they have been held with such ambassadors from Kazakhstan, China, Belarus, and Azerbaijan to look at advancing foreign relations policy of our country in the context of parliamentary diplomacy. That's the activity report, honorable members, and with your permission, co-chairpersons, I would ask the CFO to summarize the quarterly financial performance supporting those activities.
Good evening, honorable chairs, honorable members, honorable chairperson, NCOP, STP, and colleagues. I'll be taking you through the performance to date as at end of quarter financial performance to support the work of Parliament, the funding. How did we perform? During the quarter 3, during the adjustment budget, Parliament received additional funding of 220 million, 0.8 for direct charge for the payment of exit gratuities and loss of office gratuities for the non-returning members. We got this money through the request we did to National Treasury, because when they allocated the budget for the 2024-25 financial year, it was not taken into account the effect of change of parliament, the significant non-returning members that needs to be paid. So we're successful in getting that 220.8 million so that we're able to pay and also be able to pay salaries of members for the whole financial year. That was the only amount that was received by Parliament. We had budget shortfalls due to budget cuts that happened in the prior year and in 2024-25 financial year. But we're not successful to get additional funding for operations. So we had to do internal budget reprioritization. The original budget was 4.4 billion. So through internal budget reprioritization, during the adjustment budget, we had the 220.8 million we received from National Treasury for direct charge. And also we had to source internally to assess where can we get funding to find the areas where there were pressures in terms of the operation, the oversight, activities, public participation, and also recruitment-related costs for new employees. So we had engagements with National Treasury in October, where it was agreed that we can take a little bit from the rebuilding. So 124.7 million was redirected from the rebuilding to operations. And also we had retained earnings of 32.5 from the prior year. And then we were able to generate 60 million from own revenues, interest income, and catering sales, and 3.5 internal savings from the establishment of 7 Parliament. So in total, we moved from 4.4 billion to 4.7 billion in terms of the budget of Parliament. Included in that budget, there is a rebuilding amount of 1.7 billion in the 4.7. So that's how Parliament funded the immediate financial pressures for the year. However, the budget remains under pressure, and engagements with National Treasury are ongoing to ensure long-term financial sustainability of the institution. Because now we are busy with the priorities of 7 Parliament. However, we're still finding financial challenges. So in terms of the third quarter, October to December, the administration program was allocated 192.4 million for the quarter, and the spending was 181 million, which is 94% of the budget. For legislation and oversight, the budget was 221.5 million, and the spending was at 94% of the budget. Associated services spending was at 101% of the budget. There it has to do with travel entitlement of the members as the Parliament business increased. So the utilization of the entitlements, hence the spending was at 101%. Direct charges for remuneration of members, it was at 100% of the budget for the quarter. And the rebuilding spending was at 59% of the projected budget for the quarter. In overall, the spending for the quarter was at 93%. And if we exclude the rebuilding from the normal operations, the spending was at 98%. I think with the rebuilding, already STP outlined the challenges that were experienced with getting the SARA approvals for rebuilding and appointing the service provider. Now we are waiting for the service provider to get the construction permit, even though they are mobilizing the resources for NA. So that is impacting the spending on the rebuilding of Parliament. But those funds are deferred for rebuilding purposes. For the annual, the spending to date, if we compare with the annual budget cumulatively, we spent for administration programs 61% of the budget. We had budget of 859 million for the year for administration, and we spent 527 million to date. Legislation and oversight, spendings at 68% of the budget of 936.8 million for the year. Associated services spendings at 73% of the 866 million budget for the year. Direct charge spending is at 78%. The direct charge budget is after it's adjusted by 220.8 million. The budget is 713 million. With that, the spending at 78%. I've already outlined the reasons for 9% spending on the rebuilding. In overall, the spending excluding the rebuilding is at 70% for the year. I think on this slide, I've already outlined the reasons for over or underspending there. It's mainly on the rebuilding and the members' entitlements on associated services. The spending increased in line with the increase in business of Parliament in the court. Can move on. The administration program has spent 81% or 247 million of the third quarter budget, including the rebuilding. But if we exclude the rebuilding, it's at 94%. I've already outlined in the chart. You can skip this slide. The spending here is per economic classification, which is the same information as per the program in terms of the overall spending is at 93%, excluding the rebuildings at 98%. We're showing that the compensation of members for the quarter spending was at 100%. Compensation of members, PARMED, which is the contribution for medical aid of members, of former members of Parliament and provincial legislatures. The budget for the quarter was 24.5 million, and we spent 94% of it in paying those contributions. Compensation of employees spending was at 100% for the quarter. Goods and services spending was at 80% of the 80 million budget. Goods and services members' entitlement spending was at 110. I already outlined the reasons. And transfers to political parties, we transferred at 100% because all parties have submitted the financial statements and assessments were done during the first quarter and second quarter. So we transferred to all political parties. The last one is rebuilding of Parliament, which we spend at 59%. So here is a cumulative picture of spending for the year. Compensation of members spending, it's at 78%, which is a direct charge. Compensation of members, PARMED, which is contribution for former members of Parliament and provincial legislatures. The spending to date is at 71% or 66 million of the 93 million for the full financial year budget. Compensation of employees spending is at 70% of the annual budget of 1.3 billion. Goods and services APP spending is at 51%. Entitlements is at 73% of the annual budget of 180.9 million. Transfers to political parties is at 73% of 571.7 million budget. The actual spending is 419 million. Capital expenditure is at 10% of the budget. The institution is currently awaiting some delivery of computer equipment for the staff, which will increase that spending on capital assets. And the rebuilding, we are underspending there, as we already outlined the reasons. So that will be the overall picture in terms of the performance on finances. Thank you, STP.
Thank you very much, House Chairpersons. The third component will be the human capital report, and I will ask Mr. Mgaga, who is our head of human capital, through you, co-chairs, to cover this component.
Co-chairs, chairperson of the NCOP, members of parliament, STP and colleagues, good evening. This is a summary of some work we've done in the last 3 quarters. The first area speaks to the learning and development aspect. It provides details of number of training courses that we have provided in the last 3 quarters. We have trained at least 89 employees that attended various training courses in that quarter. The interventions included the induction program that we run on a monthly basis for our new employees. Some of the interventions included the HR systems, training modules, the demos, and also the focus on the 6 household expand staff members. We also focus on the protocol training for our new employees. About 20 of them attended that training. Also, to enhance our employee relations with the focus of equipping the line managers how to chair the labor relations related matters. We had about 25 attendees. The platform that we use is the e-learning, whereby we completed the ethical conduct training, the organograms, health and safety training, as well as BCOE related trainings. We also included those 6 values that the institution has, as well as the vision and the mission of Parliament. We also dealt with the members' disclosure of interest, demos, and presentation, which was delivered through the Ethics Business Unit. Next slide. We make use of various training methods as we conduct these trainings, largely face-to-face training through a classroom format, e-learning, hybrid methods, as well as remote virtual methods. Those are the breakdowns of those various methods that we rolled out. Next slide. Members, chairperson, and co-chairpersons, we also have the bursary scheme. In the last, we launched that bursary scheme in line with our developmental plans. This is where employees identify their needs, and we intervened with the amount of 176,000 rands that was allocated to about 15 employees. Studying towards the master's degrees, honors degrees, and undergraduate programs. We also focus on about 692 PDPs, those are developmental plans, that were submitted to us, 50% across parliamentary services. We had 56% of those submitted to us against the number of 1,232 workforce. The focus areas identified included technical skills such as legislative drafting, monitoring, evaluation, protocol, and project management. We also roll out behavioral skills related interventions. Next slide. This picture provides largely the work that is covered within the human capital. There's a talent and acquisition, which largely focuses on recruitment. In this regard, it paints the number of recruitment that we have done in a period. I'm happy to share that during this period, particularly in the period of October and December 2024, we're able to recruit and place 42 employees across the business of Parliament. The talent growth and succession planning, that is work in progress. Co-chairpersons, chairperson of NCOP and members, looking to integrate the succession plan for critical skills as well as critical roles, particularly at a senior management level. Our employee value proposition, which includes the offerings that is offered to employees. It includes our long service awards, our life insurance through Sanlam. We have a robust and sound bursary scheme, as I presented. And I must point out that Parliament is one of the few institutions that affords the post-retirement benefits, such as your medical aids. We have very sound leave policy, very generous, as well as the wellness program, which is inclusive of sports and recreation. Next slide. The establishment of the remuneration function is one area that is still underway. We're in a process of appointing the remuneration and benefits manager. Really, this will assist us to standardize, harmonize that remuneration and total rewards function. The pension fund program, safe to point out that we have two pension fund schemes, which is the Government Employee Pension Fund, as well as the PSOP pension scheme. In 2022, we launched the voluntary early retirement, ready to encourage space to create pipeline, future pipeline for critical roles. And in that, we received about 18 applications, and 7 of those applicants left the employ of Parliament just before the approvals were afforded. Eventually, we afforded about 11 employees. That has been implemented in line with the regulations of National Treasury. As mentioned, the harmonization of PSOP, which is one of the pension scheme, is ongoing. The alignment of salary scales is one work that we are looking at, particularly to integrate the historical band, which is referred to as X band. That work is ongoing. Co-chairpersons will recall that work was launched in December 2024. Phase 1 was implemented then. Phase 2 of that integration will happen in April 2025, and then the last phase will take place in April 2026. The employee relations function is one of the key functions that we manage. I must point out from onset that there's a sound relationship with organized labor, in this instance, NEHAW. We do hold our monthly labor forums where we discuss various topics. The collective bargaining unit, it is work in progress. It is in a process of being registered with Department of Labor. It's been going for quite some time. Hopefully, in the coming years, that will be approved. Chairpersons, we now at the last leg of our 3-year wage agreement, which will be implemented now in April 2025. Then we'll re-enter the new wage negotiations. We're in the course of embedding new ways of working, driving new cultures. This is through the work of policies that are under review. The hybrid model, which will support the return to office program. We're reviewing harassment policy, bereavement policy. With leave policy really is to look at one aspect, which is sabbatical policy. The two policies, stand-in and overtime policies, are a bit of a problem to us. We're trying to harmonize, standardize them with applicable Basic Conditions of Employment Act. We're also reviewing the remunerative work policy as well as our performance management policy. The employee wellness, we had about 47 referrals that were made by the institution, as well as self-referrals by the employees themselves. Areas that they covered included the mental health, relationship matters, work-related, loss of family members, and personal development. We also had team interventions where teams needed some consultations around the issues of emotional support. The primary health care, we have a fully fledged clinic here on site that supports both members as well as staff members. In the last year, we had about 400 visits, including occupational health related matters. The health initiatives that we have rolled out, for example, the cancer awareness, as well as the sports and recreation relaunch of sporting codes. Of course, there is a 24/7 online support that is available for emergency cases. We're in a process of reviewing the work of wellness in terms of ensuring that there's a clarity with strategy and policies. Some projects that are currently underway, STP referred to them, the organizational realignment. We're now on phase 3, which is the design of the new organization. The work of culture change. We have a change management framework in place that was approved during the 6th Parliament. We're in a process of, it's ongoing work, we're in a process of implementing that. We have launched the return to office of all of our employees. That started back in November 2024 and is ramping up to March 2025. We should have at least 100% presence of all our employees in the precinct. Lastly, we are reviewing the remuneration and total rewards section. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, co-chairs. The last component is the governance report, and I will ask our head of strategy, Ms. Mashika Brenda, to cover that component.
Thank you. Good evening, co-chairs, Madam Chairperson of the NCOP, members of Parliament, STP, as well as colleagues. This particular report on governance provides the overall view of the governance structures and the 7 key committees that are in place to facilitate institutional governance, accountability, as well as decision-making for the institution. We have covered areas of the executive authority where the Madam Chairperson as well as Madam Speaker meet with the institution to decide on key matters that affect the institution, as well as the executive committee meeting, which includes a deputy speaker, as well as the deputy chairperson of the NCOP. Then there is the secretariat committee and the management team, where the overall decisions for the institution are made, and the risk management committee for the compliance and assessment of risks and mitigations for the institution, the policy committee, which looks at the institutional policies, development review and approvals, as well as the audit committee, which looks at our audit risk and governance factors. Therefore, this governance report relates to all of those that happened in quarter 3. Next slide, please. So during the quarter, the administration conducted most of these key committees to facilitate decision-making, as well as making sure that there is governance as planned. Some of these structures, especially the secretariat and the management team meetings, did not meet as planned, owing to the congested parliamentary program that was associated with the establishment of the 7th Parliament. We have since caught up with some of these meetings now in quarter 4 to ensure that those key issues and approvals are made. We have also provided a view on this particular committee, the Joint Standing Committee on the Financial Management of Parliament, that particular induction meeting which took place in November 2024. Next slide shows the compliance on the FMPPLA and all our obligations for the 3rd quarter. These have been achieved in quarter 3, except for the submission of the financial statements in December. Although the financial statements were completed in time, the submission deadlines to the submission for the financial statements to the Executive Authority and the subsequent tabling, these were non-compliant with the planned dates due to challenges in the submission processes. These challenges have since been resolved and compliance going forward will be ensured. Therefore, the overall monitoring of the FMPPLA continues to ensure that compliance is achieved in the fourth quarter. I've provided the same reasons above, Chair, on the Secretariat meetings as well as the FMPPLA obligations that were not met. This particular slide explains those. Next slide, please. That then brings us to the end of the Quarter 3 governance report and the overall performance report, and the committee is requested to note the progress made to date. Thank you, co-chairs and Madam Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Chairperson of the NCOP. Thank you so much for your opening remarks, and let me thank the Secretary to Parliament, together with your officials who have made presentations here. Honorable members, the third quarter report has been presented, and I believe that we were listening attentively when the STP announced here that this is a cumulative report of programs that would have been presented and outlined in the APP, which was presented in the 6th Parliament. And we now find ourselves here having to deal with this report. All the respective programs in the APP have been presented, starting with the report on administration and the last report that has just been presented here. And there are matters pertaining to the report, some of them which are ongoing. Amongst them, you have the restoration of Parliament, which we agreed in our previous meetings that we were going to do fiscal inspection, but will also receive a comprehensive report from the administration on how that project is being implemented. So, and there would be other matters in respective programs which we will continue to deal with. So I'm going to open for honorable members to engage with the report, either in the form of questions, in the form of comments, and deliberations. My assumption is that all of you are going to speak. Yeah, so there is no point of having to note your hands. What we will just do is to decide where we start, Honorable Ndov, whether we start from left to right or from right, or from right to left. And because today I see that we have a larger representation from the EFF. Okay, we have presence of the EFF. Yeah, we are going to start with you, honorable members. Honorable Kalipi.
No, thanks very much, Chair or co-chairs. For the record, I'm Honorable Mkalipi, who is an alternate to the TG in this committee and is my first time to attend, so you'll forgive me. So in Parliament, we have something called a maiden speech. So this is my maiden speech. Chair.
The co-chair is out of order
Yes, Chair.
because I have noted you to speak.
Yes, Chair.
Yes,
And she must fall.
You are under my protection. What the co-chair is doing is an encroachment, and we do not allow it.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. We welcome the presentation by the Secretary to Parliament and his team. I just want to get some clarity, or I just want to comment on just few issues. For instance, on Program 1 of Parliament, I'm interested especially on the issues that are affecting the people of South Africa, because Parliament is all about servicing the people of Parliament. So I'm interested on the very same page of his presentation, and I must say that putting my picture there, Secretary, didn't work. So it's not a form of a silencing me. Chair, the administration, which is Program 1 of Parliament, correctly so, you are saying that the Parliament's mandate is ensuring operational excellence, institutional effectiveness, and responsiveness to members of public. Maybe if you can expand on the mandate, because that is the core business of Parliament, and we must ensure that is happening, especially how do Parliament respond to members of the public? I think there's a huge gap in that regard. As members of Parliament, we do oversight. The experience that we have, when we go on oversight, people, they just raise expectations. Especially for me, I serve at cocktail level. So when we go and do oversight on municipalities, once we said as members of Parliament, we are calling a community in this a particular area, a ward, people, they come with a huge expectations. They thought that we are going to take over from the municipality. And we do have a mandate as a committee to also ensure that those issues are being attended to. But the fact of the matter, we just listen to them and say to them, okay, we are going to process a report. That's it. They don't want those things, people. They want actions. After Parliament have come to them, they want actions. So if you are saying that one of the mandates, according to your administration, which is Program 1, can you also elaborate it? How do you ensure that there is responsiveness to members of public? That is number 1. Going straight to Program number 2, of which the Secretary of Parliament was very honest to say that we didn't achieve on oversight priority plan. Yes, I'm very happy that you didn't say you have achieved, because there is a huge gap as well on the oversight. Oversight is divided into 2, according to me. There's this oversight that is, according to the committee, we're on the oversight period next week. We go as a committee, do oversight to come back, right? You are taken care of. But it does not mean that as a member of Parliament, you must not do your oversight. Every Monday, according to a program of Parliament, we must go and do our constituents. That is oversight. It includes oversight. Where I'm going with this, I don't think Parliament is taking care of members who are expected to do oversight. I'm the member of the National Assembly. I do oversight everywhere in the country. I'm called by a particular members of the community in Eastern Cape. One, we have problems of Eastern Cape of flights. When I took a flight to go and address the member of the community there, in the rural area in Eastern Cape, I must think, as I arrive there, how I'm going to go back to Joburg. One is the problem of flights, because Parliament does not accommodate members of Parliament. So that is a fake oversight that I'm doing, because I'm already rushing to go back One, I can't afford the accommodation as a member of parliament. So it means this is a lip service. While we are saying as parliament, we must do the oversight. We call ourselves as the parliament of the people. I arrived there, I spent only 2 minutes to say, hello, it's me, Hlengwe Mkhalipi, member of parliament, and I'm rushing back. One, I don't have accommodation. That is one thing that I think parliament must also address. The number of tickets, I think the STP will know, and Mam Linda will know. Each and every time, especially towards this year, we are coming to you to say the flight tickets are finished. Please intervene. Mam Linda will tell us, now I'm going overboard on my budget. So those are the things that if you can't take care of your members in order to make the parliament effective, you are not going to get it right, STP, because these are the members who are supposed to go and service those people. The issue of permit, I think I was also watching the Committee on Finance when the TG was saying to the Minister of Finance, one of the issues, we as members of parliament, we were paying 45% of tax income, 45%. You have this permit as in the members of parliament, which is very expensive. And when we raised this issue long time ago, when we arrived here in parliament, there was those kind of things, like, let us talk, let us not take each other to court and so on and so on. And then when we were told, no, this thing can't be resolved because it includes judges, it includes legislatures, but now Eastern Cape is out of permit because we're told that permit functions because of the Act of Parliament. Eastern Cape is out of permit and is very expensive. Can we also address this issue of permit, Chairperson of NSOP, to say that let us make it not compulsory, but if people they want to choose permit, while they are taken, the 45% of their money is taken, in order for them to know at least we have something. I'm telling you, the high of unemployment in South Africa is too high. When you go to engage with the public, they know good members of a member of parliament has got a lot of money. You can't come to a community that is hungry, and then you don't even buy cold drink. Lapo now we don't have money. 45% of your salary is taken by SARS. Permit is taken 7,000 if you have one child. If you have a husband, an aunt, and mom, 15 to 20,000 is gone. This thing can be addressed just once and for all. The presentation that suggested that you had 4.7 billion. And how much do you want? If 4.7 billion STP is not enough, can you just take us through, Gutikandi, how much will be enough for Parliament to function? Because right now, STP, you are talking about the tools of analysis in terms of those things called cell phones and what, but you don't give us those things. Mam Linda is very quick to say, you are not going to get your tool of trade because of 1, 2, 3. But Parliament got 4.7 billion and you can't even provide us. We are using old gadgets. We are claiming that, no, we are going to address it, don't worry, blah, 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 blah. But you are expecting us to also excel in that regard. Can we also be taken into confidence? The human capital report, can we be taken through in terms of the organogram of Parliament? We don't know what is happening, who's happening. I was even very stressed when you were introducing your team. Who are these ones now? Who is this? Who is this? Can we get a global picture? Who is who? Because we know there is some vacancies in that organogram, including the language service. Why we don't have people who are dedicated to be in Parliament to do the interpretation? Each time when they raise a point of order there, we've always been told, this matter is going to be attended to. The bargaining sector, you are mentioning that you don't have a collective bargaining council, but we are on top of the matters. Please also elaborate on that matter, because we don't want to find ourselves when our workers are up in arms and there is no such a platform to negotiate. I know there's CCMA, but with a big institution like this, can we also get a clarity on that one? Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Honorable Maoto, in that
Thank you.
order.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings to yourselves once again, my colleagues and the Parliament authorities that side. Chair, I must first express my concern with regards to, firstly, this committee being established only in the third quarter, quarter 3. I think this was the last committee to have been established. The rest of the committees of Parliament were established earlier. And to this day, we still don't know the reasons why. Why it took almost 8 months after the elections to have this committee. We're hearing in the grapevines that the ANC was fighting with DA over wheelchairs. So we don't want to go here with rumors and gossips. Can we be told why this committee took long? And I'm saying this because, Chair, if you look at quarter 1, performance of quarter 1 and quarter 2, specifically quarter 1, there's no tabling of the report. So if you look at quarter 1, it says submission, but the tabling was on the second quarter. And then you go to the second quarter, it's got the tabling of the first quarter. And there's no tabling of the second quarter. We don't see it. So, and STP started correctly with that code that within 30 days of the end of each quarter, the accounting officer must report to the executive authority on the performance of Parliament. So how then do we deal with that? Because we're expected to very soon, maybe not in this meeting, to adopt this and take it to the House. How are we going to agree with this when it's not clear? When was it tabled? Chair, we go to the restoration of Parliament. The STP gave progress there to say the service provider has been appointed. Can STP please tell us who is the appointed service provider? Okay. Chairperson, the NCOP. And also, Chair, on that restoration of Parliament, is it not perhaps useful for the STP when you report to tell us which phase are we on? Because to just say 75% implementation of restoration plan as per milestone, we don't know what is the milestone. So just they include, these are the phases, we are now on phase 2, and this is briefly the milestone. And we can't use builders' holidays as an excuse of not meeting your target. You ought to know that in December, every builder, there's a builder's holiday. Even big retail stores, they know, they plan for that. So this cannot be used. You can't put it on a plan and then you don't meet the plan and then you blame it on builder's holiday. Chair, I'm excited about slide number 14 that talks about online petitions. You say you are ready to go live. We would like to use the system because our people really wish to petition Parliament. And also, when you petition Parliament, it was very painful, STP. We had a standing committee of finance, I think it was a joint standing committee, and it was dealing with the Bantustan states who were still complaining about their pensions. Botswana, Venda, Siskai, Transkai. And those people, they say we transported ourselves. One of them was saying he's the duly elected leader of Venda. He traveled by bus from his own pocket. He said, I'm from Messina and I boarded a bus to be here. And we finished the meeting around 3. And was like, there's no bus to take me back home. Can I be assisted with accommodation, at least? So how do we deal with such things? We as Parliament, We accepted the petition. We invited them to come over. Why are you not assisting them with resources, accommodation, and flights? One of them is from Mafikeng, it's very far. And what is more painful is that we then invite institutions. But those institutions were paying for them because they don't go there. They don't come there from their own pocket. It was the pension fund administrator. There were 3 institutions that were invited, and they used the resources from the institutions. But the people who are complaining about those institutions must fork out money from their own pockets. I think it's very unfair. It's actually very painful, and we know the story. We are coming from these communities. We know the issue of Transkei, of Ciskei, of Bophuthatswana, and on Venda. So let's just be really accommodating in that regard. I appreciate the impact assessment framework, STP. I think it's going to assist us in a in a more efficient way, because we've seen that majority of the times when we submit the private members' bills, us as members of parliament, they don't go anywhere. And the ones from the executive, they are the ones that travel very fast through the process. And we were told in the past that there's no capacity in the legal department. In the last meeting, STP, you did highlight that you've capacitated the legal office. You're going to see a difference now. This framework will also really help us in a long way. On the online petitions, STP, just tell us, when are you going live and how will it work? The state capture report. Chair, it was presented in June 2022. We are now in March, towards the end of March 2025. That's almost 3 years. And what is the progress? We see the report says there's progress on the implementation of the state capture recommendation plans. What is the progress? What are we dealing with? Can we be enlightened on what has been done so far? These are recommendations. This is how far we are with these recommendations, because that commission costed a lot of money, of taxpayers' money. And really we need to see it to its finality. Chair, my concern is on written questions, which of late are now even being transferred to oral questions. And even when they get to oral questions, sometimes the House does not get to those questions. So you find that the question session time is 3 hours. We don't even finish the oral questions. Then we have to go to the transferred questions, which were delayed because of non-responsiveness from the ministers, and then we still don't get to it. Or if we do get to it, you find that the minister is not in the House. Like in the last question session, Minister Gayton McKenzie just said, "I won't be around by 6 o'clock. I'm leaving," and his question was there. So how then do we deal with that? Because what other mechanism do we have as members of parliament to hold the executive accountable if they don't answer written questions, if they don't come to the House, or their questions don't get to finality? On the human capital, I'm worried about the 3-year agreement that is lapsing now, end of March. What progress has been made with the bargaining council unit, so that we don't find beginning of April employees are now on strike because there's nothing? So what process has been followed to make sure that we continue, so that they don't come and say, now they start negotiations, we want so much percentage at this time, and then that time you don't have. So we should not be caught flat-footed. And you use a lot of abbreviations, VERD, PSOP, you know? So can you just elaborate so that we are all on the same page? Chair, my last point is on the submissions of financial statements. Deadlines being missed. How do you miss deadlines, and why? And what is the what recourse do you have? Because it can't be business as usual that you just miss a submission. We don't miss from our side as political parties, because we know if we miss, we won't get our allocations. But now Parliament is missing its own, deadlines. So it's very, very painful. And if you look at the governance, really it's meetings, meeting planned, meeting held. But what governance processes or targets were met? What you can't just your objective can't be a meeting. What is it in that meeting? That is it tabling of the report? Is it review of whatever policy, review of the strategy? What is it that it comes out of the governance? We're not getting it from the report, Chairperson. And the last one is missing of secretariat meetings, because the secretariat was busy with Parliament work. That's what it says here. That's on page 51. Secretariat meeting did not take place as per requirement due to secretariat being involved in parliamentary programs. How? Can't you employed to do what? You're employed must to do parliamentary programs. So why are you missing your own meetings? And this is a term of self-reference, as it were. So it can't be when you are busy with other things, when you are busy with work of Parliament. So you need to factor in your secretariat meeting in this parliamentary program. We do everything else ourselves, chairs, and we still meet all other obligations, internally and externally. So this is really unacceptable that you miss your own meetings and you are saying you're busy with Parliament programs. I thank you, Chair.
Honorable Sewisa.
Thank you, Chair. I think some of my points were taken by Honorable Mkalipi and TG, but I'm just going to, out of all the points, I'm just going to touch on 2 issues. And I think all of us, the common denominator is going to be the restoration of Parliament. And the TG has went into it into detail. But my question would be, how much is Parliament spending? Because the dome, I don't think the dome is a property of Parliament or even Public Works. Public Works doesn't have any material that I know. I used to sit in the Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure, and most of the time would advise that buy your own things so that you do not spend on renting. So the more we elongate the issue of restoration of Parliament, it means that we are spending on the restoration, we are also spending on the issue of renting the dome. So the question would be, how much are we actually spending per day for the use of the dome at present? Number 2 would be, Parliament is saying that they are struggling to have funds for operation, and they are reprioritizing funds. So if there's no funding for operation, then it means that the operation is not going to run smoothly, taking into consideration that there is already a budget cut. Generally, there's a budget cut. Everybody has been, is in the firing line of the budget cuts. How are we going to ensure that Parliament actually operates as it's supposed to operate? Taking into consideration STP, in the last meeting we were told that there were vacancies and things are going to be brought together, amalgamated, and see what can we do away with. But at this moment, there's the crisis we're sitting with. Already before the budget cuts, there were already a crisis of operational, and now there are budget cuts. How are you going to actually make sure that Parliament is running smoothly? And then, co-chairs, I think the other questions actually, if finance could be here and Public Works, because I think some of the issues when it comes to the process of what's happening with the restoration, DPWI needs to come here and we get the clarity, because there are 3 implementing agencies. You've got your DPSA, you've got your IDT, you've got your ISA.
And my experience with the DBSA, and I hope they are not involved in this. That's why I said some of the questions need to go to the DPWI. I hope the DBSA is not involved because the DBSA is involved in the 3-tower project in Tshwane, which is still not complete. So if we are relying on DBSA, the 2026 target is never going to be met. It's according to my experience with the implementing agency. So for now, that will be my only, I think the others have been covered by my colleagues. Thank you.
Honorable Khade.
Ngiyabonga mgcini sihlalo nobabili nje banihleli lapha. Ngiyalibonga leli thuba ningipha lona ukuthi ke ngithi ukuphefumula ngalo mniningwano esithulele wona lapha eParliament. Okokuqala sihlalo, I'd really like to appreciate the reports which were given here, because basically they show the true reflection of what is happening. When you go to the restoration of Parliament, you just go and peep from the other side. You can see that there's a gaping hole which is there. Something has to be done. And then, but when you look at the budget, you can see that it is only 10% which was used to do that. I think that there's an objective, true reflection of what is happening on the ground. What must be done now and moving forward is how to ensure that the target which has been put there, that by 2026, the next State of the Nation address must be there in Parliament. I think that that's what must be expedited. But what I really appreciate from this report is the issue that one is that there's this continuous engagement between the executive authority and the Treasury and the Minister of Finance. I think that engagement is needed as of yesterday, because when you look at the baseline of Parliament itself, when you look at that baseline, you can see that although it can appear as 4.7 billion there on the books, but literally it's not like that. No, it's not like that. So the issue that if we want to have this ambition of really bringing change to the people of the country, in ensuring that our parliamentarians are really empowered, it means that we must really look at how we budget for Parliament. I'll still insist on that. So the medium-term budget policy statement was delivered last year, October, November, and then basically it cast in stone the budget which is coming here this year, which was tabled the other week. But the issue which we want to encourage here, Chair, is that we must give the executive authority all the support, that we cannot do things the way we're doing it in the past. The issue of the budget process, immediately it is adopted, the new financial year budget, it must be, is only then that it started to be implemented. I appeal that the executive authority actually engage at an early stage, so that we as parliamentarians, we are the ones who are passing the budget. And then I think that we cannot come here and complain at the end of the day that the Parliament does not have enough resources, does not have enough funds to execute its core business. So it is our decision to decide. So I think that we must give the executive authority and the administration that they must report to us quarterly how far are they with their engagement with the Treasury, so that the come medium-term budget policy statement, we know that we're going to have something different which is going to be on the table. And I'm also looking at, when you are dealing with international relations, the international relations of the country is very clear. South Africa, Africa, and the world. When I was looking at the issue of the bilaterals here, the courtesy calls which were there was not even a single courtesy call coming from an African country or from an African country. The issue is then, how are we going to ensure that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is going to be implemented as officially? Because if we don't harness that ability which you have as an African continent, we'll always be second-guessed by the other countries. We know very well that Africa is the richest continent in the world, but its people are the poorest. I think that with this trajectory which the policy of the government is coming with, that we start with the African continent, I think we must show it even here in Parliament. I see that when you look, when you look even at the engagement, I'm very happy that China was part of the engagement because that is our largest trading partner, China as a country, per country level. But when you go to the region, you find that the EU itself is the biggest region, biggest trade which we have with them. But throughout these three, there was not even, or it might have been affected by the elections, the SAEU interparliamentary meeting. But I think that we must prioritize that because if we are going to change the narrative of South Africa, the issue of creating jobs must be done. And then the people who must set the tone for that is this parliament. And then, but also appreciate the other facts that, parliamentary staff is one of the best paid staff in the Republic, in the public sector in particular. That one must be highly appreciated because when we're fighting, when we're still young, when we said injury to one is an injury to all, we said there must be a living wage. It is good that where the sector we're in, the staff is well compensated. But now we must escalate, also go to the members of parliament and ensure that the support which they get may happen. It must be improved. It's very distressing that even up to now, other people are still running short of the cash which they must use. But on the side of compensating the members of parliament, you must not worry about what the press is saying, that the better life begins with the people who live with. I think that as the parliamentarians say, we must support that you compensate your staff well, you support them, that you are having these aftercare services, that even if people are under trauma, they are going to get that because we are the yardstick. Even the presidents account to us. So it means that when we pass the laws, we must be the best implementer of those laws. So on that regard, I'll say kudos. Continue supporting our staff, and then I must do what impressed me, what I raised in the other meeting which was here. I made a run around here in Parliament. I don't want to say what I raised, but I found that there was serious improvement. Even before I came here, I went in various quarters, I checked, and then those issues which were raised were attended to, and it's only the happy staff which can do that. So it's highly appreciated. Ngiyabonga, ke a leboha, baya danki, ke kgathetse kopo tsa mae.
Honorable Hansinger.
Thank you, Chairpersons. Chairperson, I would like to start with my questions on page 31, which was the section which the CFO dealt with. The second paragraph in particular, which refers to National Treasury that allocated an additional 220.8, as she put it, million rands, to direct charges to fund the exit gratuity and loss of office gratuity for non-returning members during the budget adjustment process. Now, this gratuity in itself should be a great concern to us as members of Parliament, because this has been recommended by the Independent Remuneration Commission in its report, which was released in October 2024, that this should be terminated, which means that from 2029 and for councillors from the very next election in 2026, this particular benefit will cease to exist. The benefit in particular would grant members 4 months' salary for every 5 years completed. And it serves, and the origin of this gratuity was intended to serve as a bridge for any new employment, for any other employment, but at least it was something that would get this particular now non-member of Parliament and non-councillor into a position to survive for at least a couple of months before his or her personal financial matters could be sorted out. So it should be of a great concern, and I would suggest that it be looked at in much more serious manner than to just have this one paragraph to explain that the additional budget, from National Treasury occurred. And I want to leave that there and just plead that we look at this, far more seriously than to just have this one paragraph here. A more direct question on page 32 would just ask for clarity on content, where the graph shows associated services. What would these associated services include? And then also just more clarity on direct charges and the difference then between, how do you allocate and what would be reckoned as direct charges, and also associated services in relation to the other categories which are mentioned there and which are clear to me. Then on page 36, I do not understand why there was any additional compensation for members, as I understand it from the presentation, to PARMET in legislatures. How must I interpret the particular allocation which is shown there as compensation of members in brackets PARMET? Please give us more detail on that. It's also mentioned on the next slide, which is slide number 37. And then on slide 45, where mention is made of psychosocial support, with 47 therapy sessions addressing mental health and 10 team consultants for emotional support. It's difficult for us to judge whether this is an improvement or whether this is because there is no context to the 47. So could you give us a bit more perspective in giving us context of how we should weigh the 47 compared to other years, or so that we just have an understanding whether 47 is, a sort of a outshooter, or, whether it's within the norm of previous years' experiences. On page 49, mention is made of the policy committee that did not meet. If you could give us an explanation for that. Those are my questions. Thank you, chairpersons. And for the report. Thank you.
Honorable Clerk.
Put their hands up. Chairperson, good evening to everybody, and thank you for giving me the leeway to go and do a quick interview. I just wanted to ask the following questions, and I hope I'm not repeating questions that people have already asked. Just in terms of the contractors that we are going to appoint on page 8, do we make sure that we vet these contractors going forward? And in terms of the parliamentary rebuild, is there a separate project manager that is on site in order to manage the contractors, or do each contractor have their own project manager, or do we do it via Parliament? Just to ensure that all the checks and balances are in place with the build. And then could you please tell me on page 13, what is the status quo of the recommendations in terms of the Zondo Commission, and recommendations that have already been imposed, what were the outcomes of those recommendations? And then we were told in the last meeting that I note that your petitions has made target. We were told in the last meeting that petitions will now only take 3 months to be dealt with,
and not a year and a half like my petition that came to Parliament last week in terms of the water crisis in Germiston. So I just want to know, does that status quo remain in terms of your targets, and are you monitoring in that vein? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Co-Chairs.
Honorable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Co-Chairpersons. Good evening, colleagues, STP, NCOP Chairperson. Honorable Chair, let me start by welcoming the presentations made in this meeting. And we appreciate the progress made so far. And also just to say that if we identify a gap, we should propose or suggest solutions to those gaps that we identify as members to assist the administration in making sure that they also implement what we want to see as Parliament. STP, you said that with regard to the new wing, the appointment of the contractor is done, but with regard to the old assembly, is still in the process. My concern with this is that we are fast approaching the winter season. We know that we have winter rainfall in the Western Cape. So is that not going to affect the deadline that you set for yourself of 2026? We know the heavy rains of Cape Town. So is that not going to affect that deadline? Because we want to be realistic when we deal with these issues, because that is a fact. Then when it comes to permit, in many times, in many meetings, we have said that there should be options for members. We shouldn't be tied down to permit. Permit is very expensive. Yes, when I retire, I know that I will be getting a cut of what I'm paying, maybe 75% of what I'm currently paying. Is 66%. So, yes, but currently it's very expensive. We want to suggest that there should be choices. Members should not be tied down to one medical aid. They shouldn't be tied to one medical aid. So we should have options so that we can choose which medical aid we want to take. Then on the issue of staff complement, if my memory serves me right, in our last meeting, we spoke about acting positions. I don't know, maybe I missed something. I didn't hear anything about how many acting positions are there in the administration, and when are we planning to fill all those vacancies? If there are no acting positions, then it's fine. Then on the issue of oversight for individual members, that is something that we are doing on whenever we get time on for ourselves. During the constituency period, we really do one member oversight. So I think after the oversight visits that we do as members, we really need to bring back the report and the reports, and there should be responses to those reports, because you cannot go and do an oversight and there are challenges, then you are a member of parliament and there is nothing after you left, then you'll go again next time to go to the same area, like the issue of school visits in January. We go to those schools, there are challenges that they raise, but what do we do after that? We send the report, they go to the basic education, then you go next time, next year, same challenges, they are still there. Then we ask ourselves, what impact do we make? Because when you go there and find a challenge, there should be responses to those challenges. And when you arrive as a member of parliament, the expectation is very high. And they believe that, oh, now that members of parliament or a member of parliament was here, then we will get positive response to our challenges. So I think it's something that we really need to look into. Then on the issue of the phasing out of gratuity, I think that we shouldn't venture into it, because I take that as rumors. It has never been, yes, I know, it's there, but it hasn't been presented to us. So it will not make any impact if we start discussing something that was not presented to us. It must come to us, then we will make our inputs. But phasing out of this gratuity, I think even those who recommended it, I think they were being unfair, but let's not discuss it now. Let's wait for the presentation to be made, then we will take it from there. On public participation, I'm interested to know if, because last time we even said that this unit needs to be capacitated and strengthened, so that whenever Parliament is on the mission of public participation, when that committee or the select committee arrive at that particular area, the people should be well informed of what is expected of them, instead of them raising everything and anything under the sun. So otherwise, we appreciate this report and also the improvements made so far. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I forgot one thing. STP and chairperson of the NCOP. I think there's a need, like I was asking, Uguti, as per your the completion date of the rebuilding. You said it's 2026, and I was saying, are we sure that we're going to meet that deadline because of the fast approaching winter season and also the heavy rains of Cape Town? We know how it goes. So here we have a serious challenge in that dome. Today, there was no water in the toilets. The aircons were not working. Sound also sometimes it's a problem. And we still have a long way to go. How can we mitigate to this challenge that we are facing? Because some members were even suggesting that why can't we go back to hybrid? Because we know that there will be a rotation of members' attendance. So I want us to look into that and also to understand how soon is DPW going to finish the erection of that dome, because we know that they haven't completed their work. But for us to be safe and also to know that we are catered for in that dome, the sound, toilets, and because when there's no water in the toilet, then it becomes a serious challenge. Where do you go if nature calls and you are in that sitting? There will be voting taking place. Maybe you are debating. Nature calls. There's no water. Then what do you do? Today the temperature was 30-something degrees, 32, 33 degrees Celsius. It was very hot, and the aircons were not working. So we had to get some of the items that were there to stand over until our next sitting. Thank you.
Chairpersons, leadership of Parliament and the House Chair. I've just got one question on page 43 of the presentation. The point is alignment of salary scales. I just wanted clarity about what is a historically ex-ban salary. I'm just not aware of what that means, and that levels have been realigned with Parliament's salary structure. So I just want to know what a historically ex-ban salary means. But I do think that, we are dealing with this Q3 performance report, and I'm sure when we schedule the meetings that we were supposed to have last week with the annual report, issues that are being raised around the dome and everything else, I think we'd be able to discuss that in more detail. Thanks.
Honorable Van Rooyen.
Thank you very much, Chair, and your co-chairperson, the NCOP chairperson. Chair, as much as my questions are related to performance of the institution, but they won't be directly linked to, all of them directly linked to the Q3 performance report. One welcomes the measures that's indicated by the Secretary of Parliament to align the completion deadline of the two phases of the restoration project. But what I didn't get coming out clearly from the presentation is on measures that are in place to avoid the delays that caused in fact, the delays that were recorded in the previous phase. I'm not sure if the restoration assumptions that are being summarized here are accommodating those delays, because I didn't see them saying anything about the delays that were that happened as a result of heritage consideration. I'm not sure in this new phase should we expect heritage considerations also to come in, because this new phase will be dealing with the restoration of the old assembly. So obviously, if you don't provide for heritage consideration, that might also cause more delays to the execution of this project. Then secondly, one's obsession is about the transformation of this institution, Parliament. As we are all aware that obviously it came in as more of something that is inherited from the old order. Most of its configuration, apartheid configurations. I mean, the building, the members' residences, and the staff itself, the patterns are obviously still the patterns of, in most cases, still the patterns of the old order. So one is interested to hear the story of transformation being told throughout such presentation. And I'm not sure, maybe I might have missed parts where issues like the participation, I think one member said something about the participation model in this institution of the public, because we are a participatory democracy. It's very expensive for ordinary people to participate in this parliament. And as a result, participation in this parliament remains the domain of those who are moneyed at the expense of the masses of our people. So I'm not sure if this model, the model of the current president, is talking to these aspects of transformation, but also the employment patterns. You know, I haven't heard a lot about how the employment patterns continue to address the transformation agenda in this institution. Are we tampering with the old setup? Can we compare, where we are with where the institutions was in the past, or maybe are we able to track the employment patterns to indicate that we are really transforming these institutions? Issues of equity, issues of procurement, are we still stuck in the old order of procuring services, or are we using procurement to empower people? I didn't hear such coming out of this presentation. Maybe they are hidden somewhere in the presentation. That's why I said my questions are not necessarily, or maybe my comment, are not necessarily going to focus on quarter three. They're just going to be general. And lastly, from my side, it's very apparent to all that the constitution of the current executive has ushered in some unprecedented events. I mean, starting with how this administration started, it was clear that how the composition of the current executive it affected everything. I mean, you know what is called. It's not. There's no need for me to say to give its name. You know its name. But the result of the matter is that it's affecting, and it's not just affecting, but it adversely affects parliamentary processes. And I'm worried it seems as if our approach is still on the status quo mode. It can't be the status quo mode. The Swan administration is different from the previous administration. So I'm not sure if our planning, maybe as Honorable Darkmore just indicated, these are the details that we will interrogate when we deal with the plan, the annual plan that was presented to us recently. But the root of the matter is that it's adversely affecting the process of parliament. The GNU composition is adversely affecting the parliamentary processes. I will give one further example, and I think that's where it will be important for Parliament to pay attention. As we speak now, we are all aware that budget was not approved on time, and now chances are, because there's overwhelming rejection to the proposed budget, and this is something that is unprecedented in this Parliament. It never happened. In the committee where I'm sitting, the Committee of Finance, I can tell you now, we need to deal with issues of fiscal framework amendment. And we are left with 10 days to comply with the Money Bills Amendment Act. And the result of the matter is that if you look at the capacitation of our committees, it leaves a lot to be desired. So I'm not sure if the current approach in terms of performance, is it accommodating such things? Because we need technical support as MPs, to perfect the execution of this legislation, because if you amend the fiscal framework, you will have to make certain technical consideration. You are not just going to amend it because you are opposed to VAT. There are certain processes that you must take into consideration for you to effect an amendment. So we definitely going to need some technical assistance from Parliament as an institution. I'm not sure if in our approach we are accommodating such things, because it's no longer business as usual. And the root of the matter is that it seems as if this is what we must prepare for. I mean, even for the future, because if we are not going to do this, we might be late to alleviate the challenges that will be faced by members in our planning. That's my submission, Chair. Thank you.
Honorable Hade.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairpersons and the Chairperson of the NCOP, Honorable colleagues, the Parliament administration. Chairperson, I don't have much except to pose a question on the matter of assistance provision to former members or retired members as to whether there is a prescribed period that post-retirement a member may not be able to get assistance on matters that relates to issues of pension and stuff. That's the question that I would like to ask. The question is triggered by some challenges which has got some specifics that I may provide if the need arises. Perhaps during or after this meeting, but generally, what I wanted to establish is whether there is some sort of a lapsing of a period that after such a time a member may not get assistance. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, honorable members, for your questions, for the comments and deliberations. I will want us to, or I would like us to work like this. We had a meeting last year, which was an induction meeting for members. And in our deliberations, there was an enterprise of issues that honorable members have identified. And they said that they will want to get reports on those issues. And in the meetings that or prior to the meetings that we had 3 weeks ago, we met for 3 days with the Speaker and the Secretary to Parliament. I remember in those meetings we told members that we have briefed the Secretary to the Legislature, to Parliament, about the reports that members want to have them presented before this committee. And one of them is the report on the restoration of Parliament, which we even agreed that we are going to do fiscal oversight in the morning. It was supposed to have been the 13th of March. It has been postponed due to other competing matters. So that is going to happen on the 28th of this month. That is it. So it's one of those issues. And there may be other issues related to realignment of the organizational structure, which has also been, the progress of which has also been presented before here. And I remember in that meeting when we met with the speaker and the secretary even alluded to vacancies in key positions in the organizational structure which may be impeding Parliament to function as effectively as possible. So I would like to plead with the members that if there are additional issues that members will want us to refer them procedurally for reports to be processed, let's make those additions and we will find a way to schedule meetings where we will be dealing with those issues, either 3 in a meeting or 4, or whatever number of issues we are able to deal with. Included to that list is the issue of permit. We have agreed that we need a meeting with the Board of Permit. So let's allow for the scheduling of such meetings where, and if there may be other issues which could have been dealt with at the induction of members. Or maybe the induction process would have involved everybody. It was not possible for us to ask the questions that we would have wanted to ask. We can still request the administration to prepare reports on any other issue that we want them to present to us. I understand that the report might have been condensed and some issues do not come out very, very clearly in the report. We can then say, Secretary, we note the report, let the presentation of the report pass, and then we want you to go and tease out the following aspects of the report. For instance, when you say, no, we are making progress on the organizational realignment or redesign and organizational culture, one member may ask, what do you mean by progress? And so we will need to get maybe a report that says, where are we in terms of organizational redesign? What are the aspects, the salient aspects of this redesign which you want to bring to the attention of the Joint Standing Committee? And as I hear what Honorable Van Rooyen is saying, Honorable Van Rooyen is saying that there are uncertainties and fragilities that come with politics of a parliament or a government which is comprised by parties without an outright majority. It's new in the South African situation. It might have happened in other democracies elsewhere, where such countries are used to minority governments. It has not happened here. It's going to come with its own incipient challenges. It's going to be stop, start, stop, start. Sometimes we can come here, Honorable Maute, when we arrive here, they say, no, take your bags and go back home because nothing is going to happen the whole week. So there is some form of agility that we will need on the part of administration, technical combativeness that should help Parliament to move in the event you have difficulties like those. And so what we will need to do now, let's stick to that list that we have agreed on, and if honorable members have additional issues, we identify those issues, we are going to schedule them, but that does not stop you, Secretary, from responding to the questions that honorable members have raised here for clarity. But I want to, on my behalf as the co-chair and on behalf of the Presidium in its entirety, honorable members must have our commitment that all those issues that we have agreed on will come here before this joint standing committee. And we will also, honorable members, look at appropriate and opportune times. It has come to our attention that Friday meetings do not work. We are human beings, we are social beings. Friday becomes very difficult to do the work of this joint standing committee productively. So in some cases, I was talking to the deputy chief whip that we may even be opportunistic. For instance, on days like where a minister comes to present the budget and the sitting only lasts for 1 hour, we missed an opportunity during that week. We could have slotted a meeting of the committee and work for 3 or 4 hours. So we will opportunistically look for moments like those ones and talk between ourselves and the chairperson of the NCOP, the speaker and the secretary to parliament on how we can slot our meetings and find ourselves able to do our business effectively. And maybe the last 2 points, Chair, would be to say in your quarterly report where there are targets that have not been achieved, what are the remedial programs or exercises that are put in place, and do those remedial activities come with at a cost? And if they come at a cost, what are the cost implications? And maybe one other thing would also be to say, maybe as we go forward, the finance report and the report on the programs may have to go together, because remember, financial allocation follows an administrative function. You decide on a program and its activities, and then money comes to fund those activities. If we say on administration, this was the allocation per quarter, and the allocation was meant to achieve the following. Here, where we said we were going to build a house, we had allocated 10,000 rand. We did not build the house. The 10,000 rand is still there. Or maybe we have moved it to another function because we realized this one could quickly happen. If we can be able to do it, politicians are easily agitated. And when you come to report before politicians, you always make sure that the report is as clean as possible and the report speaks for itself. It must be a report which, when we come out here, we must speak about it as if it has been written by ours. That is what makes a politician satisfied. So I think if we can, as we go forward, format our reports that way. I also do not have a better way of how that can be formatted. It's something you can think about and say, we want to say to you, this is what was allocated, and this is what was used, and this is what has not been used. And if there are financial interventions that have been made, you also say no here, because we realized that it was not going to be possible to realize these targets in the remaining quarters of the year. These are the decisions that have been taken. That helps us to move forward in a way that is desirable. Honorable Co-Chairperson. Okay. Okay. Yeah, the last time when they after the speaker and the secretary responded, we gave you honorable members some time because today it has been a long day. There is not going to be that time. I want to check with honorable members before we give them time to respond if there is anything that could have slipped the mind of any one of us. Honorable Maut.
Thank you, Chair. I was reminded by Honorable Dr. I forgot his name. The issue of gratuity, Chair.
Yeah.
The independent panel produced the report. Us as members of parliament, what do we do with that? It gets submitted to the president, but what influence do we have? Because we don't agree with that report, that the gratuity must be cancelled.
You mean the exit gratuities? Yeah. So, yeah. We remember 3 weeks ago we discussed these issues about welfare of members. Not only the gratuities, we also spoke about members who die in silence. So some of them would be former members, some of them would be currently serving members. But I think a statement is being made, or a submission is being made here, Honorable Chairperson and Secretary, that the gratuity is very close to the heart of members. Gratuity is part of the welfare of members. And let's look at matters like those. Look, I will want a situation where at some point we don't sit like we are in an adversarial relationship of two powers. One has to account and one has to ask questions. Have a conversation. If we have that day where we can come together and have a conversation to say there are the following matters which afflict members, and let's talk about them and see how we can resolve them going forward. It may take us some 2 to 3 years, but some we may have to resolve them within this term. As Honorable Van Rooyen has said, as this political reconfiguration thickens, the plot also becomes very difficult to comprehend. And so it's always important that when we are still like this, we can have a conversation about all these issues that can make this parliament an activist parliament, as all of us desire to have that kind of parliament, but also have issues that afflict members being given the attention that they deserve. And maybe not members alone, including the staff of parliament. Because sometimes when, I always say that we remember Philemon Masinga for scoring the goal that took South Africa to the 1998 World Cup. But we never talk about the pass that Dr. Khumalo made. If he decided to kill the ball at that moment, the goal would have never been imagined or thought of. When we come here, in most cases, it's administrators, and in some cases, some of them at very junior level of administration, they go unsung. Nobody mentions them. And, it even goes to the species chairperson that honorable members present in the House. It's the work done by unsung heroes and heroines. So the kind of conversation we talk about, it's that brings us together and helps us to deal with the real issues that makes us a parliament of the people of South Africa. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Co-Chairpersons, for the opportunity And we want to take this opportunity, thank all the honorable members for the inputs that they have made. They are quite informative and very valuable for the work that is before us as executive authorities of this institution, which then gives a sense of indication that really issues that borders on them are the same issues that also border on us. So which then says we are almost on the same wavelength on how issues should be tackled within the institution. Maybe just, I'm going to respond to some of the issues that they have raised, and I will also hand over to the administrative to deal with some of the issues and perhaps elaborate on some of the things that they may have indicated. And I'll start with the issue that is burning in the House, the issue of gratuity. I think to give a bit of a background to this matter was presented to us by the Independent Remunerations Commission. So they made two critical recommendations, which as we speak are before the President to assent signature. And we have since spoken to the President to hold a bit on that until we engage and finally we come to a logical decision. Basically, one of amongst the recommendation had to do with the issue of gratuity being taken away, citing reasons that it is due to the fiscal constraint. It is practically impossible to maintain that. And more so, they are saying that there isn't any contribution from us as members. That money comes directly from the National Treasury fiscus, and therefore there isn't absolutely a cent that we are contributing towards that as members. So therefore, to sustain this in future, given the so many challenges, competing challenges that we are having as a country, it will not be feasible to sustain this gratuity. One amongst the other issues, it had to do with the proposal that they made to say that one pension fund for all public representatives. As we know that municipalities, the councillors are public representatives, but how is their pension fund regulated? It's in line with the Municipal Structures Act. And they are saying that that has since experienced so many challenges. And the recommendation thereof is to say that all public representatives must belong to one scheme. So given the situation and the issues, and we know possibly what is the risk that would be attached to that, insofar as the pension and pension fund that we've already made contribution to it. And we then suggested that we would perhaps recommend to the President to hold on to that, to the signing of these two recommendations until there are extensive deliberations and discussions around this matter, because they are policy matters which necessarily in this third quarter, we might not, as administration, they will not be able to exhaust that matter. It's a political matter that must be dealt with differently, and an inclusion of those that are also affected by this. And therefore, perhaps what we are taking, Honorable Chairperson, is that maybe we need to invite the Remuneration Commission. Let's look at the feasibility. If they should come and make a presentation to the members, afford them an opportunity also to voice out their views in this regard. On the issue of permit, again, it's a very sensitive matter which members are complaining all the way. Yes, it is quite costly, very exorbitant, and it was meant for the selected few. And it's a scheme that has less than 4,000 people, and it's very expensive whilst you are still a member, but very beneficial the moment you cease to be a member. So it's a two-way string that needs a balance. And magistrates and judges, they refuse to join permit because we wanted to incorporate them so that we share the spread in terms of the money that we are contributing that. So as we expand it, at least it becomes much more better in terms of its funding. So they did not want to join in permit, citing the very same reasons that you are citing. And we'll follow up, Honorable Kalipi, on the issue of Eastern Cape having won this battle, because it has not been allowed for members to join any other independent scheme, just to see how has that been achieved. We were together in the Speakers Forum, that has not been mentioned, so we were grappling once again with the issue of permit and these other two matters that I have raised. So we'll just make a follow-up in that regard. And on the issue of an organogram that has been raised here, I think we fully agree with the honorable members. It's important that we look at the organogram vis-a-vis the vacancies that are there and vis-a-vis the current labor force that we are having. Is it gainfully employed? The vacancies, do we really need to go out there to recruit more? What are we doing? Everybody who's here, is he effectively and optimally utilized by an institution? Is there a way of possibly moving around and place people so that they are fit for purpose and contribute meaningfully towards the work of the institution? So we're still seized with that matter, and I think sometime next week we have called that meeting to look at that, perhaps maybe in the next appearance that we might be having. So by then we would have exhausted this work and be able to report back to the portfolio committee as to what is it that is feasible, what is it that we can do so that we can safeguard the minimum resources that are before us as Parliament. On the issues of tools of trades, that has been raised by almost all the speakers in the House. I think it's a matter that we need to look at. I was whispering to STP to say, what is the lifespan of the gadgets that members are using? I mean, it becomes, to me, it's kind of like a bit unfair to say that because of you are the member who has been there in the past 5 years, and therefore you continue with the gadgets that you've had, whilst we know that the system changes and the lifespan, it gets shortened. So after 5 years, they no longer have a lifespan, and the softwares are no longer adaptable with the evolving changes in that fraternity. So I think it's something that we need to take stock and do audit as to what is the actual status quo in that regard, so that those members that are being affected as such, they are being identified and their issues being raised and being addressed accordingly. The issue of oversight constituency, I think we said as this Parliament we are an activist Parliament, and then over and above the oversight that we do, Honorable Kalip is correct that some of the oversight we are doing on Mondays, that then comes with challenges as well. We can't just do them haphazardly to say that if I go to Harankua Hospital, on my way out, the CEO was busy with me, Honorable Ndlovu is moving in, she wants attention. It becomes kind of like disruptive in a way, because now they are fighting we are fighting to get their attention so that they can address some of the concern that we are raising. I've just been there, and you are walking in, you are noticing the very same things, you are still raising up. It's kind of exhausting and time consuming from their side. Perhaps what we maybe have to look at is to say that just as a courtesy to say that I will be visiting your hospital, and if there are any other more members, try and organize them such that on the very same day they arrive this more or less same time, they are being attended accordingly, all of them at once. Because as things are happening, it's quite a useful tool which is important for Parliament, but it comes with its own limitation. It's kind of like disruptive in the way, to a point where members would go and they don't find joy. It's as if like they're just being overlooked, nobody cared about them, and it creates drama unnecessary and tensions unnecessary. We just need to look at it as to how best can we work it so that it can be quite meaningful and useful for the institution. And again, the issue of tickets vis-a-vis the activist parliaments in which we are, we also discussed this matter to say that really are 80 tickets sufficient for the work that is before the members? What is it that we ought to do given the financial constraints that we are having as Parliament? We are also looking at that matter to look at what is feasible, what is doable in that regard, so that we try and meet the members as far possible. Over and above that, we know that most of the members are the leaders in their respective, in their other lives as well. And as they go and do their work, they still utilize those tickets for their party work as well. So, but the question is that sufficient for the entire year for the work that is before the members of Parliament? So we are looking at that and see how best can that be handled. The issue of vetting of contractors, I think we fully agree with the suggestion that has been made, because if we don't do that, we even run a risk of the project 2026 September not being realized, because somebody has misrepresented the bank statement, and indication was that he does have capacity to execute his work. Somewhat down the line, you discover that the person does not have capacity, he runs away. You still have to start all over again, getting other people, but vetting them, it will give independently, it gives you a much more better sense as to whether the person will be able, with or without payment, to carry this work that is before us. I think we welcome that suggestion. And whilst we're still on the rebuilding, the question of whether is there a project manager, I think we must indicate, Honourable Chairperson, that this is a 10-key project, and one amongst the other specialities that are there full-time is the project manager. He is there full-time overseeing the work of the rebuilding, and we welcome the oversight visit that you want to undertake so that we can track progress and monitor. And I support the view that says that we need to be explicit as to say, when we say the milestone, exactly what is it that we are talking about, and how do we measure thereof as to whether, in a true practical sense of it, whether we've achieve that or not. So a comprehensive report in this regard, it will be presented as well to us. We are awaiting that. Next week as well it will be coming, and accordingly we'll urge that in our next appearance we must bring that to the attention of the members as they go and do their oversight there. They know that they are looking at the progress against something that is tangible, that has clear milestones that are set out to achieve the completion date as set out. On the issue of petitions, in as much as members are welcoming the e-petitioning, which is a step in the right direction that we support, but we must not encourage disregarding the current manual way of doing it, and we possibly have to look at explore other ways and means in which we can encourage our people to forward their petition in a much more better and organized way, as opposed to them having to come here. Why I'm saying that, we still have far-flung rural areas in our country where there is no connectivity. And if we were to focus primarily on the e-petitioning, then we are leaving the bigger part of our community, which is extremely adversely affected insofar as service delivery is concerned, insofar as access to government services is concerned. So we are saying that there has to be a concerted effort of having concurrent ways in which petitions can reach the institution with ease and be responded to within a reasonable time. And how then do we say that if a petition has been forwarded to a portfolio committee, how do we monitor the 3 months in terms of the progress, just to track progress that they're making? One of the suggestions, we were saying that perhaps we need to look at the programming. As we do programming, we track record. It's the same way as we track progress on the bills. Same should apply in so far as the petitions is concerned, so that we are able to track where are the delays. Why is this petition has taken a year before its completion? Chairperson, we must be frank and honest. We're still dealing with petitions as far as the 5th administration in this parliament. Therefore, it's an indicative of weaker systems in terms of tracking and monitoring the petitions, which comes to the disadvantage of the very same communities that we are here to represent. So we need to have a way of modifying that, including the e-petitioning. Having it's not enough, but does it yield the desired outcome that we intend to achieve? So that at the end of the day, we are saying we're not just being petitioned, they were responded to within reasonable time, and they did receive qualitative responses that then translated into action on the ground. So those are some of the matters, Chairperson, that were raised by honorable members. The last one that I want to touch on, the issue of a dome. The dome, the expenses that we incurred is when we were transporting it. We're not paying a cent on the on a dome on monthly basis. The only money that we're spending is on broadcasting services during the sitting. However, we note the concern, and as a result, we have requested them the meeting with the Minister of Public Works so that we address the issues as they were raised by the Chief Whip, that of ablution facilities not functioning properly, and also the aircons. At some point, because of Cape Town is windy, it blows out the rooftop as well, which might be a bit uncomfortable. So all those matters are being looked at, and hopefully we will be able to resolve them with speed. Having said that, Honorable Chairperson, I would pause at this point in time, allow the Secretary to Parliament to respond on other issues that are being raised, quite a number of issues, and accordingly afford the other officials to respond to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, co-chairpersons. And thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. You have covered almost 70% across all the areas that have been raised. Now ours will be to cover aspects of those responses that have not been touched. Maybe first, Chairperson, to appreciate that you have raised that our report must try as much as possible to be succinct. If something has been reported and not met, we quickly indicate the remedial measures and how to catch up on some of the targets. Safe to say that, Chairperson, in a format of cumulative report, you'll find that we can say 10 targets and we report 6 as achieved. In other instances, how we lay out targets there may be targets only set for quarter 3, but not for quarter 1. So in certain instances, we will not report remedial action because it was scheduled for quarter 2 or quarter 3. And there are those instances, but where it is clear that our target is likely to be not achieved at a time we are reporting, we will be able to upfrontly state the remedial measures. On the budget structure of Parliament, the 4.75 billion, Honorable Mautwe, that you have raised, that maybe we have sufficient amount of money. It is indeed not sufficient, as Honorable Khadeb has raised, and we would need this committee to support the work done by EA, Executive Authority, to rethink the budget model of Parliament. So the 4.75 billion we have, 1.3 billion that we have this year is for rebuilding of Parliament. So the only amount of money we have is 1.9 billion out of that 4.75 billion. The rest is those funds that we know are statutory allocated, transferred to members, and payments from direct funds, and also remuneration of members and permits and so on. So the component of 1.9 is for employees as well as goods and services, and few amounts that are available for operations. So it skews it. It looks very huge at 4.7 billion, but it is not. So there's a need to rethink the budget of Parliament, and we have started work on the development of a funding model for Parliament. And I think once it emerges, we will be able to make sure that the Executive Authority are able to champion it in the organization in a manner that will be appropriate to support the process. The issue of assistance of members that on a post tenure when they finish, Honorable Hadebe, my colleague Linda Hepper will respond to that. The chairs cover the tickets, but Linda will cover this component of members in terms of post-retirement tenure. Mr. Mgaga will respond on the issue of expense. And indeed, Chairperson, as you indicated, we did present in the induction the high-level organogram, and we also presented an update on where we are on the org review, but we may not have covered the elements of each because it was a moving target at the time we presented in Feb. So at the time that the committee would request an update, we will be ready in terms of the latest information in that regard. So there is work happening on that area. On the area of the rebuilding, I think Chairperson has covered largely those areas. Safe to indicate that in the contract structure that will be focusing on the old assembly, Project 2 and Project 1, new assembly, we indicated they will be running simultaneously. The other will start 2 months later in May as scheduled, and then they are meant to finish together. The risk mitigation mechanism usually get presented by contractors. What's your plan? If you say you're going to do in 20 months, present the plan. And in contracting terms, you are able to look at measures where there's no unjustified delays whatsoever. There's punitive measures in contracting that are also put in place. So Parliament, through the contracting model with the implementing agent, would look at all those areas to make sure that it is mitigated, except in instances where it is absolutely justified that there could be delay. So we remain confident so far that when we present on the 28th of March, we will present a full plan on the restoration project. The area of separate project management, Honorable Clerk, I think the Chairperson has covered that. Should there be any component, our project manager is here Mr. Mashiho, he will be able to pick up those areas. On improving the gadgets, Mr. Polia Ravi would respond to that part. The chair has responded on the dome in terms of what its coverage is. And on the area of implementation of state capture recommendations, Mr. Kaso would cover that area in terms of progress so far. And on petitions, the chair has covered. If there's any element, Advocate Pindela would also indicate, and Mr. Kaso, to the extent we may have missed a component. Dr. Gabriel will cover on the process we have done on filling positions in the language services and what is planned around that area. With your permission, Chairpersons, my colleagues that I have mentioned may quickly start in no order in terms of responding. Where we missed the deadline, Honorable Mautwe, on the management report of finance in December, indeed, we missed that part, but it's a management report, not quarterly reports. So we've got components of quarterly reports. We also have a monthly financial statements. 20th December, Parliament was closed. And I will say accidentally, and I take ownership in my office, that the report at the time it came, the official who processed it was already on leave for purpose of taking it further. But it's something we have corrected, and in January it did not recur. I think Parliament closed around 14 December. So the reason that we missed that part, it was that incident. On the policy committee, it met in August, so it didn't have to meet in that quarter. And we are reviewing its timelines for meeting. I would ask Mr. Mgaga to start, and then followed by Ravi. On the accommodation for members when they perform individual oversight, Linda Harper would cover those components. Thanks. Mr. Mgaga, followed by Ravi and Linda.
Thank you, STP. Thank you, Chairperson and co-chairpersons. The point around the expand, it is an historical labor relations matter. That there was a political decision taken back in 2017 to integrate the lower level staff members that were outsourced. So that decision was then implemented back in 2017. But we needed to find a corrective measure to ensure that they are integrated within the broader salary scales and salary levels of Parliament. We make use of the Peterson system. When that happened, they fell outside of that. We researched and we came up with a methodology which we now implemented with effect December 2024, which is a 3-year progressive implementation plan. As I indicated earlier, the first implementation of that agreement with organized labor took place in December 2024. The second phase will then take place in April 2025. And the last phase will then, which is the last phase, will happen in 2026. So that's the integration of the expand into our salary scales. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chairpersons, good evening, and good evening to the Chair of the NCOP. I'm going to answer both the questions relating to the accommodation as well as the tools of trade. I'll start on the matter of the accommodation for individual oversight. Member Kalipi is correct. There is no provision for accommodation when members travel on individual oversight. However, they do use their travel entitlements if they need to for this purpose. When members travel on organised oversight, obviously the institution pays for all the costs, including accommodation, S&Ts, and all the travel-related matters that go with that. So what I'm going to suggest is that we look at these specific instances. If there are other examples we can use, that we take it to the Member Support Forum, we have consultation at the Member Support Forum, and we look to see whether or not there is a requirement for a policy amendment to support members who are doing individual oversight. So I would recommend that that goes onto the agenda for the Member Support Forum. In respect of the ticket allocations, it's correct, members are allocated the 88 single journeys. However, we monitor the utilization throughout the year. And when we get to the point where certain members are running short, we then initiate the transfer arrangements which we put in place. And that allows members who have not used all their tickets to transfer tickets to members who have run short. So we cap that at basically 100% across the political party, because transfers happen within the political party. We also report these statistics of utilization at the Member Support Forum on a quarterly basis. And currently our average utilization is between 85 and 90%. And we'll look at the utilization for this current financial year at the 31st of March to assess whether or not the 88 and the 94 that we give to whips and party leaders is sufficient for travelling requirements. But again, it's a matter we can look at and consult further on at the Member Support Forum. In respect of the tools of trade, just to clarify, there are 2 cycles. Mobile phones are replaced every 24 months and laptops and tablets are replaced every 36 months. So even though we contract with the service provider for laptops and tablets on a 24-month contract, we only replace those after a 36-month cycle. And I think the confusion came in when we, at the beginning of the new parliament, where we did not provide new equipment to all members. We only provided new equipment to the new members. And the returning members followed the cycle that they were already in. So if they'd had their equipment for a year, then there would be a further 2 years before they replaced, even if the 2 years fell within the 7th Parliament. So at this point, we should have no members with equipment that is older than 36 months. If there are any members with equipment older than 36 months, I need to know that, because what we basically do is we monitor the cycles. We then, when they're coming to replacement, we send a link to members asking them what their choice is for their replacement items, and then we facilitate those upgrade processes with the service providers. We even do follow-ups where members do not respond to it. So I'd really be concerned if there are members who are walking around with equipment that is older than 36 months, but we'll certainly deal with any matters if there are such. Then the matter relating to, if I may, I'm just going to answer the former member matter. We certainly will assist any member, former or current member, and we have, I think, successfully over the transition period from the 6th to the 7th Parliament provided a lot of support to exiting members. And bearing in mind those members, we still have a relationship with those members because they get their travel facilities from us. So in order to answer that question, I would need to know what the specifics were. So there have been instances where members have come to us 12 months later after they've exited and asked for their relocation facility. In such instances, we can't provide a relocation facility after such a long period of time. But I can certainly deal with a specific matter on this. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I think you have covered the point I would have asked Ravi, both of you. And then Moloto will cover the public servicing part in terms of petitions and other component. And after that, Mr. Tasso.
No, thank you very much, Co-Chairpersons, STP, and honorable members. I think the issue of the petitions, online petitions, the Honorable Chairperson of the NCUP has dealt with it to a particular extent. I think we agree that it cannot be a sole platform or a channel for public engagement. It has to be supported with other channels or avenue for public engagement. But ours is to make sure that once our colleagues in ICT have set it up on the website, to make sure that we publicize it further to ensure that as many people across our social media platforms or all the other digital platforms have got, they know and they are educated about this as their right and that it is one of the ways of reaching their parliament and raising issues. So we'll definitely have a plan to further ensure that it reaches as many people as possible. We do interface with the members of the public on daily basis through our public relations office. We have got various channels, especially on the digital platforms, which, for instance, on the website, because we are growingly making it more interactive, and all the emails and the messages that comes from the website and other digital platforms, they go to the PR email inbox, where the colleagues are dealing with ensuring that those emails they are responded to through disseminating it and bringing them to the attention of various structures and various divisions or business units, and to facilitate such kind of responses. The Parliament switchboard is one of the very important platforms that we interface with the public on a wide range of questions or services that they require and interventions that they expect Parliament to undertake. It is one area that we are working with because it has got its feet and hands in various divisions, which has been making it a little bit difficult to manage. But we are moving towards ensuring that this is resolved so that we can upgrade it and to make it more responsive and also automated during the times that the staff are unable to be manning it, to be more available in various languages, and of course to use those AI tools to be integrated so that we can ensure greater customer satisfaction. And also, I think it's important that at some point we work towards making it free so that other members of the public, especially the poor, cannot be disadvantaged from being able to reach their parliament because of the cost of telephony. The same, we are working with regard to zero rating our website to make sure that people who have got smartphones, because we do have a great high level of mobile cell phone ownership in the country. I think we've got about 200%, almost 200% of cell phone ownership in the country, and the majority of them are smartphones. So making our digital platforms like website zero-rated will assist in terms of ensuring that we reach as many people the length and breadth of South Africa with the messages, and they are able to also log in to follow the House proceedings and the committee meetings and our YouTube channels. Part of the priority for the 7th Parliament is to make sure that we provide feedback to the public, particularly who participate during the public hearings on bills, because the inquiries that we've been getting is that, and reasonably so, there is an expectation that once the public have made their views through public hearings, there is an expectation that they must get feedback as to whether those views ended up shaping the bill, and how far the bill is. If it has been passed by Parliament, they need to be informed. Signed into an act by the President, they need to be informed as well. So that kind of a feedback mechanism is something that we are prioritizing for the 7th Parliament. Yeah, I think those will be my responses. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary, and good evening, Honourable Co-Chairs and Honourable Chairperson of the NCOP, Honourable Members. Just on the issue of language services, to confirm to the Honourable Members that we do have full-time language practitioners employed in Parliament. The language services section is organised into 3 units. So we have the Hansard reporting unit, the translations unit, and the interpreting unit. We do have 14 vacancies in the interpreting unit, and we have made submissions for budget allocations to fill those 14 critical vacancies. We cut across or provide services in all the official languages. And currently in this financial year, we have filled 2 of those 14 vacancies, and we have included the other 12 in the budget for 25-26. The total number of staff in the section currently is 96. So we have 96 language practitioners on full-time employment for Parliament. Thanks.
Chairperson, thank you so much. Good evening. Members may be aware that the state capture report was submitted to Parliament in October 2022. Following that, an implementation plan was developed by Parliament. The report contained recommendations that were covering mainly 2 areas. The one had to do with parliamentary oversight and executive accountability, and the other had to do with statutory reforms to combat corruption. We have since compiled a legacy report that covers the period 2022 to 2024, which we'll make available to this committee. It was submitted to the House chairs for committees in December 2024. It's comprehensive. It details how these recommendations were dealt with. But to be helpful, I can just give the key aspects of the recommendations. For instance, those recommendations that concerned Parliament, they dealt with such issues as technical capacity, research, content advisory capacity, and Parliament has since intervened there, and there's been some capacitation of those areas. There were recommendations that had to do with the implementation of House resolutions. That is work in progress, but certain interventions have been made. We are also in the process of automating that environment. There were recommendations that had to do with electoral reforms. The Electoral Amendment Act dealt with aspects of that. For instance, there's an electoral reform consultation panel that was established that will look into such matters as constituencies-based systems, whether that is feasible or not. And there were issues of parliamentarians that were implicated in state capture, and there are cases served before the Ethics Committee. At least 8 of those cases were concluded. Is it 9? 12, yes. The Ethics Register acting is updating me on that 12 of them were dealt with by the Ethics Committee. There were also recommendations that had to do with appointment of committee chairpersons from different political parties. At the time the matter was dealt with, of course, there was a particular view, but since the last elections, that issue has since been taken care of. So 16 of the 19 recommendations that were directed within the space of Parliament have since been addressed, others fully, and of course others partly. Now, the recommendations that concern statutory reforms to combat corruption, I can only cite, honourable members, at least 8 bills that emanated from that process. Some of them, at the time the Commission reported, were already in the offing. They were in the process of being finalized. Others, they came out of that process. I've mentioned the Electoral Amendment Act, the Financial Matters Amendment Act, General Laws Amendment Act, which dealt with anti-money laundering, combating of terrorism, financing, the National Prosecuting Amendment Bill, Judicial Matters Amendment Bill, National Small Business Enterprise Appeal Tribunal Bill, Public Procurement Act, and the General Intelligence Laws Amendment Bill. Committees are still busy with some of the recommendations, so this work is continuing, but this is some of the ground that has since been covered since the report was tabled in Parliament. Thank you, Chairpersons. But as I indicated, there is a legacy report which is comprehensive, which will indicate to members what the rest of the activities that have since been undertaken in this regard. Thank you.
Much. If there's any other matter except to be covered by the acting CFO on the direct charge meaning and transfers. So if there's any point, Advocate Pindela, that has been left, okay. The last person, Chairperson, is the acting CFO.
Thanks, STP. There was a question on associated services. What is in the associated services? Associated services is program 3. Under that program, there is members' facilities. The entitlements, all the support to members is there. And then there's transfers to political party allowances and transfer to the Parliamentary Budget Office. And the direct charge is the remuneration compensation budget for members. It's allocated by National Treasury as a direct charge. If we underspend, we must return it. We don't keep it. And if we overspend, they reimburse Parliament. Not like, unlike the other annual appropriation, in terms of the Act, we don't return the funds, but direct charge, we have to return it. In terms of permit, compensation permit, that is for transfer for medical aid contribution for former members of Parliament and provincial legislatures. We don't just contribute for former members of Parliament, we contribute for former members of Parliament and provincial legislatures. As a result, when we prepare financial statement, we have this huge liability of 1.something billion as a result of permit liability for former members of Parliament and provincial legislatures. But there was a decision taken back then that Parliament must contribute for former members of Parliament and the legislatures, and we are carrying that liability.
Thank you, Chairperson. The only last point I forgot was missing the Q3 target on the rebuild clarification that Honorable Mauto has asked. So our project manager will just cover that part. Simon?
Thanks, co-chairpersons, and greetings to chairperson of the NCOP and honorable members. I think the first point that was asked, which stage are we in? Out of the 7 stages, we are on stage number 5 on the National Assembly project, which is the construction phase. And the contractor, as we indicated, that will be starting in earnest. And what we also did was to bring forward the demolition element of the construction. And you'll note that the contractor now is completing the demolishing. So that transition will mean that the main contractor who's going to do the building will start on a clean platform and not have hassles in terms of having to start with the demolishing. In relation to the issue of the targets and the December challenge, what we indicated was that because of the heritage constraints, we had to do a redesign on the old assembly building. And in December, the consultants had to catch up as part of the recovery on the lost time on the old assembly design work. And you'll note that when we indicated that the builder's shutdown period, it was not relating to construction. We indicated that the consultants had to work throughout that period, but with December and January being a short period in terms of holidays, the consultants could only do as much in terms of the recovery. But however, we are sitting at 80% on the old assembly, stage 4. Stage 4 being the documentation stage where they have to go out on tender. So all the documents have been prepared, and as the STP indicated that we are going out on tender, and then the contractor will be appointed or start construction in May on the old assembly building. The 10% of the budget spent, we need to indicate that Treasurer gave us an allocation not in line with the projections or not in line with the SCAF. It was an appropriation that was made, and of the money that we holding now of 1.3 billion, it is not in line with the projections that we made. So the 10% looks like it's a small expenditure in relation to the money at hand, but then the actual expenditure will kick in and peak as the National Assembly contractor starts, and then the old Assembly contractor starting in May. In relation to whether there will be any delays in terms of the permit applications and heritage issues, Honorable Van Rooyen, we've gone through all those hurdles. We received a heritage permit on the 6th of December from the South African Heritage Resources Agency. And we also received an HPOZ application from the City of Cape Town on the 17th of February. So all those stages in relation to the heritage application processes will not delay the project in any way. And therefore we are comfortable that if there is any delay, it would probably be extreme weather patterns or any other unforeseen circumstances. But from a heritage point of view, there shouldn't be any issue that will concern the project. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What is your name? Is Sai?
Chairperson, it's Au Simon Mashiro.
Oh, Mashiro. Yeah. No, we will get that report on the 28th of March. And you must start us at stage 1. Tell us what, you say stage 4 is the documentation stage.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Yeah. The people who live in the contemporary era, they know the 4th industrial revolution without knowing what the first industrial revolution was. So if you just say we're at stage 5 and stage 4, without knowing what the stages mean, when we meet with you on the 28th, take us through those stages and say, if now we're at stage 4, this is what we mean. And then this is what will be stage 7, stage 8, until September 2026, which the Secretary said is the date of occupation. No, that's what we have primed ourselves, we have prepared ourselves for 2 years. 2025 and 2026 September is the date on which we have been told. And I think the Secretary was told by herself that the construction will be completed by September 2026. So we want to thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP and the Secretary to Parliament and all the colleagues that you work with in the administration of this Parliament. We must also thank honorable members. We have come out in large numbers today. This is very good. We appreciate that. The co-chair, thank you so much. The next meeting, I must not close before, if there is anything that you want to say. Because I was about to say the meeting is...
She wants to sleep.
A point of before, Honorable Chair. You keep on saying that the next meeting is on the 28th. Remember, next week is Committee Oversight Week. So how many members are going to be in the meeting next week?
Yeah. No, the date of the next meeting will be communicated after we have very confirmed the availability of all members. So we will accordingly communicate the next date of the meeting. But over and above all, on behalf of the co-chair, I was thanking you for your participation and your presence in this meeting. All the commitments that have been made here will be followed up, and we will also not lose track of all the issues that we have agreed on, including the legacy issues and the issues that are that pertain to this committee. So we will run with all those issues and see where we get to. Thank you so much. The meeting has unfortunately come to an end.